Hello Americans channel. This video is made by free videos from Storyblocks, and these images and video we use just for explanation, and it's free use also.
My fiancé invited me on a beach trip with his mom if I only knew their true motives. A week in my fiancé's family beach house was meant to bring us closer, but instead it exposed a secret test I never knew I was taking. I'm 31, and I just got back from a beach trip that was supposed to be relaxing. It wasn't. Not even close. It ended with me sitting on a porch with my bags packed and a lump in my throat, wondering who the hell I'd said yes to marrying. But let me back up a little. I met Brandon a year ago at a friend's engagement party. He was 32, clean-cut in that polished real estate broker kind of way, expensive shoes, a firm handshake, good teeth, and eyes that didn't stray when he talked to you. I like that. He was warm, a little old school, always opening doors and calling me darling like he was born into charm. We fell in quickly. Dinners turned into weekends. Weekends turned into I love you. My friends teased me about how fast things were moving, but I brushed it off because, for once, it all felt easy. 2 months ago, he proposed during a hike just outside Asheville. It was simple and quiet, just the two of us, surrounded by pine trees and birdsong. I didn't even care that my nails were chipped, or that I was sweaty from the climb. I cried and said yes without hesitation. It wasn't long before we started wedding planning in bursts. He wanted a spring wedding. I wanted fall. He didn't really care about flowers. I had 3 Pinterest boards. It felt like the usual give and take. Nothing alarming. Then, a few weeks ago, he came home with an idea. My mom's planning a beach trip, he said, dropping his keys in the bowl by the door. South Carolina. Family's beach house. She really wants you to come. I looked up from my laptop. She does. The way he said it felt casual, but there was a flicker in his eyes that made me pause. Yeah, she said, I want to get to know Kiara better before the wedding. You know how she is. I did. I'd met Janet a few times. She wore pearls to brunch, judged everything with a smile, and always called Brandon her baby, like he was still in diapers. She once asked me dead serious if my family believed in table manners. And when I showed up with lavender nail polish, she said, well, isn't that bold? Every encounter left me feeling like I was being quietly measured against some invisible checklist. Deep down, I had a nagging sense that she wasn't testing my manners or my polish, but me. But still. A beach house. Time away. I figured it might be our chance to connect. Or at the very least, lie on the sand and sip something cold, while pretending I wasn't already stressed about the guest list. So I packed my bags. We arrived on a sunny Thursday afternoon. The house was beautiful, all whitewashed wood and wraparound porches. You could hear the waves even from the driveway. I was rolling my suitcase in when Brandon turned to me. Oh, he said, like it had just occurred to him, we're in separate rooms. I stopped short. Wait, what? He glanced at his mom, who was already inside giving orders to a poor teenage grocery delivery guy. Yeah, he muttered, scratching the back of his neck, Mom thinks it's improper to share a bed before marriage. I blinked. You didn't mention this. She's old-fashioned, he said. Let's just respect her wishes, okay? I wanted to argue, but I was already tired from the drive, and fighting over sleeping arrangements was not how I wanted to begin the trip. I nodded slowly and said, fine. It turned out to be a big mistake. The next morning, I was making coffee when Janet walked into the kitchen in her robe, holding a magazine in one hand and a tissue in the other. Kiara, sweetie, she said, setting down her mug with a clink, would you mind tidying up my room a bit today? Just like cleaning. The maid service here is outrageous. I blinked. I'm sorry. She smiled. I just thought since you're going to be the lady of the house soon, might as well practice. Don't you think so? I gave her a tight smile and grabbed my sunglasses. I think I'm going for a walk instead. It only got worse. On day 2, we were all out on the beach. Janet lounged beneath a white umbrella like royalty, oversized sunglasses shielding her eyes and a drink resting in her hand. Honey, she called out, waving lazily, bring me a cocktail. I looked around. Brandon. He was playing paddleball with a guy he grew up with and didn't even hear me. A few minutes later, Kiara, can you reapply my sunscreen? Then, not long after, be a doll and rub my feet. My bunions are acting up. I paused, frozen in the middle of a step. Was she serious? For a split second, the beach felt less like a getaway and more like a stage where I'd already missed my cue. Janet, I said carefully, I'm on vacation, too. I'd rather not run back and forth while you're relaxing. Her smile faltered, and her eyes sharpened just a little. Brandon pulled me aside not long after. What's wrong with you? He whispered, his face tight. You're being rude. My mom is trying to include you. Include me in what? I asked. A help wanted ad. He didn't answer. I swallowed my frustration and tried to let it go. Maybe this was just a weird weekend. Or maybe I was overreacting. Then came day 4. We had just finished dinner, and the air was thick with the scent of salt and grilled shrimp. I went upstairs early that night with a headache I didn't really have. Truth was, I just needed space. Dinner had been tense. Janet had spent most of it picking apart the menu, asking the server if the seafood was ethically sourced in that judgmental but polite way she had, then commenting on how some women just don't have a natural hand in the kitchen, while looking directly at me. Brandon hadn't said a word. He just kept sipping his wine. I was lying in bed, staring at the ceiling fan, when I realized I'd left my phone charging on the patio downstairs. It was already past 10, but I figured I'd just slip down and grab it without disturbing anyone. As I reached the landing, I heard voices drifting from the kitchen. I paused, quietly easing back a step. Janet was laughing, that low, syrupy drawl I'd come to dread. She didn't pass the fee test, she said, probably sipping on that awful vanilla-flavored tea she loved. Did you see her face when I asked her to rub them? Brandon let out a sigh. I know. She also refused to clean your room. Janet huffed. She's the fifth one. Fifth one. I froze behind the wall. My stomach tightened. Brandon mumbled something I almost missed. Should we just tell her now? Janet chuckled. Oh, no. Let her figure it out on her own. If she can't handle a little vacation etiquette, how's she going to survive in our family? That was it. That was all I needed to hear. I backed away, my heart pounding in my ears. I grabbed my phone from the side table and went straight back upstairs, this time with a real headache. I barely slept. My thoughts raced like a bad storm. Fifth one. A test. Was this all some twisted game? I turned everything over in my head. The separate bedrooms. The constant orders. The way Brandon had watched me, silently, as if I were being graded. It wasn't just bad behavior. It was all intentional. Around 3 a.m., I pulled up Brandon's old Instagram posts. Most people think to scrub their socials, but Brandon never really paid attention to the details. That was always me. It didn't take long. There they were. Girls. Different women over the last few years. All smiling beside Janet in front of that same white porch swing. One girl wore a sun hat that looked just like mine. Another had her arm around Brandon, holding a mimosa. Each post showed the same beach house and the same time of year, always labeled with captions like Family Week or Mama J's Summer Escape. There had been 4 women before me, all smiling beside Janet, all eventually disappearing without explanation. Now, it was clear. I was the 5th. The realization hit so hard it felt like the floor had shifted beneath me. I sat in bed, completely stunned. I felt hurt, yes, but more than anything, I was angry. This wasn't just an uncomfortable vacation. It was a pattern, a cycle, a calculated test disguised as a family getaway. By sunrise, I had a plan. We were supposed to go to brunch that morning. Janet had picked a charming little cafe that probably served overpriced biscuits and weak coffee. She called it a treat, but I'd already heard her whisper the day before, Kiara's got it, she insists. Yeah, sure I did. So when everyone was up and getting ready, I held my stomach and said, I think I'll stay back today. The headache's still bad. Janet narrowed her eyes at me. Did you drink too much wine last night, sweetheart? No, just tired, I replied, managing a small smile. You two go ahead. Brandon looked like he wanted to say something, but didn't. He just nodded and grabbed his keys. As soon as they pulled out of the driveway, I got to work. If they wanted a performance, then I was going to give them one they'd never forget. I walked into the kitchen and found a box of lemon poppy seed muffin mix, Janet's favorite. I added more lemon than any reasonable person would. I wanted each bite to sting, just a little. While they baked, I took all her beach shoes from the entry closet and lined them neatly by the front door. Then I pulled out some sticky notes and labeled each one. Left foot union. Right attitude problem. Next, I slipped upstairs into the room she claimed as her own and scribbled a to-do list in her decorative notepad. Scrub tub. Change linens. Polish Brandon's ego. It felt petty but also incredible. Then I walked into the kitchen, opened the fridge, and took off my engagement ring. I nestled it right between 2 jars of Janet's infamous mama's homemade pickles, the ones she'd insisted were family tradition, but always tasted like vinegar and regret. Finally, I walked into the guest bathroom and stood in front of the mirror. I stared at my reflection for a long moment, my tired eyes, my sun-kissed skin, and the faint crease between my brows that had grown deeper over the weekend. I grabbed a red lipstick and wrote on the mirror. I packed quickly. I didn't want to wait around for another conversation. There was nothing left to say. My chest tightened, but the relief of leaving was stronger than the weight of what I was walking away from. I ordered a rideshare to the airport. As I rolled my suitcase down the porch steps, I looked back at the beach house one last time. The waves crashed softly in the distance. It looked peaceful, like the kind of place that should have been filled with laughter and love. Instead, it had become a test site. A twisted little stage for a mother who wanted control and a son who never learned to think for himself. The driver, a woman in her 40s with a warm smile, helped me with my bag. Rough trip? She asked as I climbed in. I buckled my seatbelt and exhaled. You could say that. We pulled out of the driveway just as Brandon's car was turning the corner. I didn't look back. The entire ride back to Michigan, I didn't cry. Not once. Instead, I scrolled through my phone, deleted all the photos from the trip, and unfollowed both of them. Then I blocked Brandon on everything. Phone, social media, and email. The silence in my phone felt like the first real peace I'd had in months. When the plane took off, I looked out the window and laughed. It wasn't bitter, and it wasn't sarcastic. It was the laugh of someone who finally felt free. For the first time in weeks, I could breathe easily. I wasn't someone's test. I wasn't some fifth attempt. I was Kiara 31, smart, loyal, and finally done pretending someone else's version of love was good enough for me. Brandon and Jana could keep their tests, their pickles, and their lemon muffins. I passed my own. Do you think I did the right thing? What would you have done if you were in my place? When Jake told me we should move to Alaska to save money and finally start building our future, I said yes without a second thought. But after a quick goodbye trip with my girlfriends, I came home to something I never expected. Something that turned my world upside down.